Marketing Your Private Practice is a podcast where you'll learn easy to implement tips and strategies to grow your business without spending all day online. I'm your host, Kathy Colaiacovo, and I teach practitioners the Thrive marketing method to create simple and streamlined plans by focusing on long-term strategies, not just social media. Discover ways to spend less time on your marketing, attract more clients, and build the financial freedom that comes with a thriving practice. One where you have time left in your day for the people and things that matter to you. Hey, private practice heroes. Thanks for tuning into the podcast today. And it's a great day to listen in, especially if you're looking for ways to get more website traffic and convert those visitors into leads and clients. I'm your host, Kathy Colaiacovo, and in this episode, we're going to continue the lessons I shared in episode 93, and those focused on the one type of blog post every private practice or service-based business needs to help increase or boost your website traffic and your SEO, your search engine optimization, which really SEO is all about making sure that Google can find your website and knows what is there and knows what you're all about. So in that episode, I went into detail on how a Cornerstone blog post can get more love from the search engines for your website, and that in turn can help bring in more traffic. Now, the goal is when you get that traffic, you want to convert those people visiting your website into leads. Because those people, if they've come there somehow, they're interested, they're reading the content, they're consuming it, they're going through all the details you've put into that Cornerstone blog post, they're typically someone who's really interested in what you have to offer. So you want to make sure you're doing whatever you can to take them on that path and help them become a client, a paying customer. So as a quick recap, let's just talk a little bit about what Cornerstone blog posts are, because they do differ from regular blog posts. But I will be honest, the steps that we're going to share today to optimize a blog post so that you can increase traffic and leads, those steps really do apply to every blog post. There's just a few things differently that you may do with a Cornerstone one. And to be honest, oftentimes you may find that a blog post you put out there all of a sudden becomes very visited, and you start seeing more traffic on that page on your website, and you start seeing more people clicking to it and reading it and visiting it. That's where you often find that sometimes those regular old blog posts you wrote are so interesting and bringing in traffic that you may need to even convert them into a Cornerstone content piece that you have on your website. So just to recap a little bit about what these are, Cornerstone blog posts typically consist of articles that are longer than the norm for blog posts. They will go more in depth on a topic. And typically that topic that you've written it about is something that you find yourself constantly sharing with clients, with people booking consults, with people asking you questions online. It's that foundational information people are always looking to learn or even need to know before they start working with you or when they are working with you. They're lessons that you often refer to in so many ways. These are the types of things I usually find people saying, my clients are always asking blah, 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 blah. And sometimes these Cornerstone blog posts, the best way to put them together is to actually create them with a title that is the exact question people would type into a search online. This is how they often become these reference points or lessons that you keep sending people to, because it is a question people ask over and over and over. So then what can happen is you often find yourself not only sending clients there or telling people about it, but there's lots of other ways that you can actually refer people there from other places on your website too. So to give you an idea on some Cornerstone blog posts that I've created and helped my clients created, here's a couple titles to some of the top ones I've put together over the years for people. So number one, what is intuitive eating? I've also had another one out there. What is binge eating? Okay. How to stop dieting. How to pick the right business coach for my private practice. Why can't I follow more people on Twitter? And then another one, 12 easy steps to package your services for a profit. So think about all of those titles. What would potential clients of dietitians, business coaches, marketing strategists, dietitian business coaches, what kind of questions would those people be typing into Google when they're looking to stop dieting, to find out what intuitive eating is, when they're trying to figure out why all of a sudden Twitter won't let them follow more people? And I know Twitter is now X. I actually quit the X, but I still have a really good blog post out there that people come to all the time when they're wondering why they can't follow more people on Twitter. I'm pretty sure that one's going to go down the tube soon, along with X, which is what I feel has happened with it. But that's a story for another day. But even think about if people are looking how they can package their services so that they can make more of a profit from what they're offering versus hourly services. These are all questions people will actually go in and type into a search engine looking for an answer. And if they're a good match, Google will direct them to these blog posts that people have written, especially if they have optimized them to ensure that Google knows they're there, or the other search engines. You all know me. I say the Google all the time. When I say it, I am meaning other search engines out there. I know there's Bing and Yahoo and DuckDuckGo, I think, is another one. There's lots of them out there. The idea is here, it's just easier for me, I'll be honest, to say the Google, and I like saying it. But what I do mean is any and all search engines. And the idea is if you have some of these blog posts that have these titles as questions people are looking for, that's going to help traffic come to your Cornerstone blog post. So you want to do as much as you can to take that pre-qualified visitor who does come to the blog and read it and keep them moving on a journey to contact you, do more with you, start building a relationship with you, and ultimately getting to where we would love them all to go, which is to hire you. So if you do want to get a little bit more about the why and the strategy behind using Cornerstone blog posts in your marketing, be sure to go back and review episode 93. And I will put a link to that episode in the show notes wherever you're listening to this one today. Today, though, we're going to move on and get into the different ways that you can optimize those Cornerstone blog posts. And like I said earlier, these rules will really apply for any blog post that you're putting on your website as well. The idea is we want to make sure, and in particular for these Cornerstone content pieces, that they're getting as much traffic as possible. And then whatever is in that content, that it's doing its job of converting those visitors and readers of the content into leads and clients. Because a blog just posted on your website, any kind of blog, Cornerstone or not, without any strategy behind it, it often just becomes an article people read versus an article that could turn that reader into a client. And this is not what you want happening. Blogs and website content, the entire purpose for taking the time we all do to put them together is to get people to take action with you, to have them book a call, to read more, to sign up for a lead magnet. They are part of your overall marketing strategy, and they include lots of ways and different steps that you can help people take that path to become a client with you. So let's dive into these 5 different ways that you can optimize your Cornerstone blog posts. And I want you to make sure as we go through this that you're really understanding with these, the whole principles here can go for Cornerstone blog posts and regular ones as well. So step number 1 of the 5 easy steps to optimize a blog post to increase traffic and leads is you definitely want to start with a keyword-rich title, subtitle, and a URL. These 3 elements are search engine optimization elements, and they're all included in parts of your blog content. One part, of course, is the title. A subtitle is another section of it. And then the URL is whatever link people are going to click and come to visit on your website. A lot of people don't realize you can actually adjust the URL, and there's some tactics that you should be looking at with that. And I'm going to share those in a second. So when I talk about creating these all 3 things in a keyword-rich way, it means you're creating content that includes some of those keywords that you want to be known for. words that people think about when they're looking for the services you offer, when they're looking for you, when they're looking for someone who helps them solve a problem like you do. Keywords are critical in this step here. So when I gave you some of those examples, how do I stop dieting? You can get a good idea of what some of those keywords are there. When we talked about the one, why can't I follow more people on Twitter? Same thing. Follow Twitter. And why can't I becomes part of that keyword aspect as well. The more important words in some of these, though, are the stop dieting, the business coach, the intuitive eating. And then when you add the other pieces to it, you're often putting together content that actually is going to almost exactly match what some people will type into a search engine looking for a solution. If you can create a Cornerstone content piece that answers that big question people are always asking, that is one of the most ideal types of titles that you can put out there. So when we talk about having an SEO and a keyword-rich title, we're talking about, yes, the article title itself, but there's an aspect of that title that shows in the back end in the code of the content on your website that helps the search engines understand what this content on this particular page is all about. So typically, titles of blog posts are almost always set up to show and be formatted with what they call an H1 tag. Now, I'm not going to dive into detail on the tags here. I am pretty sure as I say this that I've got a blog post or even a podcast episode that explains a bit more about that. So I will link to some sort of resource. I'm not sure which one it is right now as I say this, but I do have something that will explain that a little bit more. But essentially, these H tags are ways that websites can format a title, a subtitle, or a phrase or a sentence to make them stand out a little more. On the back end, they typically have definitions of what the H1 will look like. Is it a bigger font? Is it a larger size? Is it bold? Is it a different color? So all of that is set up on the back end of the website. But the more important thing here for the SEO part is that it tells the search engines that this sentence that has this H1 tag around it is the title of the page or the blog post. And by the way, if you haven't realized this, blogs are pages on your website too. So every time you put a blog post out there, you're putting a new page on your website that the search engines can find. This is why I'm always telling people to be consistently blogging, because you're consistently putting new content out there for the search engines. Okay? Ideally, the way to optimize your title is making it keyword rich, but also limiting it. So not making it longer than 60 or 70 characters. That helps it show up better online when people are coming to a search engine results page. So when they type something into Google and they get that whole page of answers back, shorter titles are more helpful because people can get the full idea of what's involved in that link if they happen to click it. So when you look at those results on that search page that Google will show you, the title that you see is typically the wording that shows, and I'll put a couple screenshots on the show notes page here too for you so you can see what I'm talking about. But the title is always that first line you see when you do a search and you get that list of pages or links to look at as a possible answer to your question. So the title is what you see there. It's also what you will typically see if you have entered it pointedly as an SEO title. And so that may differ how we all do that. It depends on what kind of website you're creating your content on. But there are ways that you can not only just write the title of your blog post, but set the SEO title as well. And that's what's typically going to show up online when people see that. But it's also, if you hover over in your browser and you just put your mouse on any page there, you'll see a title that comes up that shows you more words about what's on that page than you can typically see in your browser. Well, that's actually the SEO title showing up there as well. So I just want to give you an idea of what it is. But the most important thing to understand is that it's typically formatted with that H1 tag. It's keyword rich. So it makes the search engines happy. They know what it's about. And people seeing it in a search results can understand what this page, if they click it, is going to tell them. Now, the subtitle is something that you format typically as an H2 tag on a blog post. And the subtitle is really almost always the first line in the content of your blog. And it should be one sentence and stand on its own. It should not be a long paragraph. You really want that H2 tag, again, just on a sentence to ensure that it gets recognized by the search engines because it's formatted with the H2 tag. This is going to be something else that helps the search engines understand what this page is all about. Because if you've put it together with a keyword-rich subtitle as well, then the search engines can pick up on those keywords too. And this is why keywords are really important for doing your marketing. Keywords are those, like I said, phrases and words that people think about when they think about you and your services. So the content for a blog subtitle is very similar to a subtitle in a report or a book. Its entire job is to support the main title and give the reader more clues as to what to expect if they continue on reading. So that's part number 2 of step number 1 here. The third part is having a keyword-rich URL. And this simply means having a URL that has relevant words and keywords in the link too. So in the sample that we were talking about earlier, for instance, one of those examples, what is intuitive eating? An ideal keyword-rich URL for that particular blog is one that would, of course, have your domain, and then it will have probably a slash and maybe a category on a blog. It depends on what your setup is. But at some point, the title is going to be there. And so an ideal one here for what is intuitive eating as a blog post like that wants to have the words intuitive eating in there. So in this case, you would probably just have slash what dash is dash intuitive dash eating. And that's it. And that would be a good keyword-rich URL. Now you can leave out the word is because that is what they call a stop word when it comes to URLs. And stop words are not fabulous to have in there because they can make a link, a URL, a lot longer. But in this case, I wouldn't say it's a bad thing to have it in there. Stop words are typically words like the, and, is, it, for, things like that. So you typically want to remove those from the URL when you create any blog so that number one, your link is shorter and doesn't have as many words in it, but the words that are there are keyword rich. So if you want to visit my website page, pepperitmarketing.com/blog, and then click on any of the blog posts there, which by the way, are typically podcast show notes now. But you'll see in the link that those URLs almost always do not, I won't say I can't promise 100% you won't find one there, but you're typically not going to find big, long URLs with the entire title. When you go and write a blog on your website, that's what it typically saves. But you can almost always in any system, Squarespace, Wix, WordPress, whatever it is, you have an option to go in there and edit that. So I always recommend being very strategic with the URLs and editing them. So if you go check out some of mine, you're going to see that there are very specific URLs that I have there because I've cut out some of the words that aren't as important. And that is a practice that everyone should do when they're creating blogs and putting these things together. So just giving you an idea, a couple of the ones, I'm just going to peek at them as I'm talking here. So I had one on episode 90. The URL is pepperitmarketing.com/podcast because that's where it's going. And then it says testimonials-in-marketing. Those are my two keywords for that particular episode. So when you're putting these URLs together, you want to make sure that you're thinking about keywords and short. So that's how you would optimize and have a keyword-rich URL. So step 1 has the most steps in it, kind of sub-steps, title, subtitle, and URL. You want to make sure they're all set together. Step number 2 is adding in an SEO description using typically some of those SEO tools that will be in the back end of your website. When you put your blogs together, you want to try and do this. Depending on the type of website you have, it may be different. So I can't really tell you easily here how you would do it in each one, but it's something that you may need to explore on your website or ask your web manager about if you have someone helping you. But the idea is here that that description you put in place The entire purpose of it is to encourage people to click on your page over the other ones they might see in the search results. But also it has the other purpose of ensuring Google or the search engines understand what this content is about here. Again, we're thinking about putting this together with keywords. We're thinking about almost writing a little advertisement in some ways, like a 2-line advertisement for people to see. They'll see the title and they'll see your description when they're looking at them in the search results. So if you can put those together and fit them together so that someone looking at it could go, oh yeah, I want to know that. That's exactly what I'm looking for. And they'll click it. That's what you want to do with your description here. But most of the time, what happens if you don't have a set SEO description that you entered, it will probably pull up either the beginning content on the page or some random content from the page. So putting in the SEO description is important because it helps you help the search engines. And we're ideally hoping that they will show it. But again, they don't always show these descriptions. Now, these descriptions can have more characters in the title. They can definitely be longer. Some websites allow you to punch in up to 300 characters. I like to keep it to 180 because you're not typically going to see more than 2 lines on a search engine results page. So if you keep it to 180 characters, you can put together that 2-line advertisement, which is a keyword-rich description of the lesson people will learn on this page. And it helps people looking at those in the results, and it helps the search engines put together something that's going to entice somebody to click on your page over the others showing there. So that's why I always recommend you add in an SEO description, especially for this Cornerstone content, because you really want it to stand out when people are searching online. If your blog post has come up on one of those search engine results pages, and you have a very clear description there, you will often have a better chance of your website getting clicked over others that may be more random because they didn't take the time to put that description together. And I will tell you that what I teach folks in my Thrive Marketing Academy, we have an article template that I share only with the people in that program. And in it, I have different sections that helps them remember everything they need to put together when they're writing an article for a blog or a newsletter, whatever it is. So as we create the content, I'm always telling people, when you write that article, think about the title, think about the subtitle, think about the SEO description. In that moment, when you're putting the content together, it's almost always a lot easier to be very strategic with creating these titles and descriptions and subtitles as you're in the moment of writing the article. So the last part of that first one is, or the second step that we have here, we want to make sure that you're putting in that meta description for SEO so that people can see it on that search results page and that Google will recognize it as well. Step number 3 here is really all about breaking up the content for easier reading by adding images and formatting the content so that you're putting different aspects into it, some visual variety that helps break it up and makes it easier for people to understand the lessons you're sharing. These Cornerstone content pieces in particular are longer articles, so they're a lot easier to read when there are images included in the article to break up the text. And I do mean images, so you can definitely add more than one in here, especially if you have a longer content piece. Sometimes people will create almost like header or subheader wording on images and put them into the content too. All of that is really great. Formatting with divider lines, bold on some of the fonts, some subheadlines on some of the fonts, bullet points, lists, and even colors on the fonts. All of that can help the flow of reading in the article. And in some cases, depending on how you put the images together, those images can actually support the article because they have these visuals that help people understand the message easier, because we all know a picture says 1,000 words, but they also help keep people interested and reading. And that's the entire point of these Cornerstone pieces. We want them to stay there and consume as much of that content as possible. Step number 4 here is to include internal links to and from other relevant places on your website for additional information. So once you get that Cornerstone blog post published, you may need to go back and review some of the website on your different pages, on your different blog posts, all over your website, really, because you want to think about where could you add a link from other places on your website to send people back to read this Cornerstone post now that you have it up there. Does it make sense when you talk on your services page about how you help people stop dieting by following the principles of intuitive eating? That if they're not sure what that is, they can read this article, What is Intuitive Eating? And those words are a link to send people to your Cornerstone piece to get more information. That's the whole point of Cornerstone blog posts, is to give people more in-depth information. So you want to review your site, look at it, and look for as many ways as possible to get those internal links in there so that people, if they're on some page on your website and they could learn more or go more in depth by reading that article, that you direct them over there. So a couple ideas for putting these internal links to your Cornerstone content pieces are putting them definitely on other blog posts. I see this all the time in the Thrive Marketing Academy and my coaching circle that I have. People are always putting together maybe a series of blogs or posts. And within those, you can refer back to one another. So if you put a series of 5 different aspects of a specific topic, you can definitely refer back and forth to them. Often one of those will be that Cornerstone piece, and then there's some other supporting pieces as well. We already talked about the services page. Sometimes your about page might have a reason that you could send people to a page like that on your website. There's FAQ pages that you could put it at too. Thank you pages for lead magnets are another great spot. You could put some wording on there. Hey, while you wait for your email to get that free intuitive eating guide, why not learn more about intuitive eating by checking out our article on, what is intuitive eating? And link to that Cornerstone post. You've got people on your website, they're waiting for the email to show up. They may just click over there to get more information again. The main goal with step number 4 here is creating internal links, is to give people that detailed information, but also in the process, you want to think about ways that you may have other spots or other wording on your website somewhere that would make sense to then send people to the Cornerstone blog post to get even more information. And what happens here is if people come to your website, visit more pages, they're staying longer. And we've talked about this before. Those are some of the behaviors search engines notice. How long people spend on your website. And if they're staying longer, this activity tells the search engines your website is worthwhile to those visitors. So they will send even more people searching your way. And this ideally happens if somebody comes across your website from a search. They come and visit your website, they click on it, and they stay there. This is something that is really helpful for the visibility of your website. If people do a search and go to, and we've all done this, I do it all the time. You click a search, you ask a question in Google, you get the answers, you click on it, you look at, nope, that's not it. You close it, you go back to the search. Nope, that's not it. Try another one. And you do all of this. But if your website is the website where they click on it from the search, go to the website and they stay there, and then they go to another page and they stay there even longer, that is a lot better for your website than the click and return, because they're not getting what they want. So if you have this Cornerstone content and you're starting to get organic traffic like this, getting more and more people to spend more time on your website and read this content is a very good signal to be sending back to the search engines. So you definitely want to look at adding internal links to and from other places on your website to this Cornerstone content post. The last thing that we want to do here is the thing that we did recently, and I can't remember the episode, but I did talk about it, and I'll put a link to it in the show notes. I have a rule. Every page on your website needs calls to action, and a Cornerstone blog post is no exception. You need to use calls to action on those Cornerstone content pieces in order to get people to convert from being visitors into leads and then ultimately clients. This is the one blog you never ever want to skip any CTAs on. And in fact, you can have more than one here. Calls to action. These are going to encourage people reading your content to do more, to sign up for a lead magnet, to book a discovery call, to read another page. Whatever your call to action is here, you of course want to fit it to the topic that's on that page and in that post. But then you want to make sure you're including the calls to action in the content as well. Because if people go through and read an in-depth article like this, they are interested. If they're spending time on 1,000 words or more and reading it and scrolling to the bottom of the page, you want to make sure they understand what else they can do with you. So you want to give them that next step to take to work with you. And calls to action on a Cornerstone blog post, because they are longer, you can insert them in various areas of the blog. And it doesn't have to be the same CTA every time. Again, you fit the CTA to the topic. So if you had a particular area in this blog post that refers to maybe a specific service you have or something else, and there's a page that you can send people to read more on that, that can be your call to action. It doesn't always have to be the book a call or sign up for a lead magnet. You definitely want to have those on here, because otherwise you're basically not asking anyone to do anything more with you. And that's not what I want you doing, especially if you've taken the time to put together a Cornerstone content piece. So you always want to make sure that you're being creative with your CTAs and thinking of different ways you can give people a next step to take. And that's it. That is the list of 5 easy steps to optimize your Cornerstone blog posts, or your regular everyday ones too, in order to get more traffic and leads. So each of these steps will be listed in detail on the show notes page at marketingyourprivatepractice.com/95. There are 5 steps you can take with those blog posts to optimize them, to bring in more traffic from the search engines, more traffic because you're probably going to send them there too. And then the whole goal is to convert that traffic into leads and possibly paying clients at some point too. Once you get these blog posts optimized, then you want to look for all the ways you can promote and refer to them and link to them in your day-to-day life and in your marketing too. And in our next episode, I'm going to be sharing some of the ways that you can strategically share those Cornerstone blog posts so that you can help boost the visibility of them, because there are lots of things and different tactics you can do on your website and in your marketing to get more people landing on that Cornerstone blog post too. You don't always want to be just waiting for the search engines to find it. You can help with some of that process yourself. And I'll be honest, sometimes it takes a good 6 months or even more for any blog post, even Cornerstone ones, to start showing up in your analytics as getting traffic on those pages, and then start showing up at some point as maybe some of the top visited pages on your website. But I do recommend you persevere with this. So using blogs in this way, especially Cornerstone blog posts, it's really a way of getting that reference point that you're always going to send people to, but it's also all about making sure that you've got something for the search engines to find, but you can help that process along yourself. So don't think that just because you put up a Cornerstone blog post next month on your analytics report, and I really hope you're reading those or checking them. If you're not, let me know. Send me a DM on Instagram or Facebook, wherever you connect with me online, or send me an email as well if you're on my email list. Let me know that that's not something you're doing and wondering how you can be doing that. Okay? That's critical here. So you want to make sure that we get this going and that you get this happening. Not having analytics and not reading that is, in my opinion, a mistake for most business and practice owners, because your analytics can tell you a lot about how your marketing is working. So at some point, we want these blogs to show up in those analytics, but if you don't have them set up, they're never going to show up there. So definitely reach out to me if you want to connect on that. And I'm pretty sure I have a blog or a resource you can read on those as well. So once you get this all up, sometimes you find, I'm not sure if this is right. Is this the right kind of Cornerstone blog post? Is this the right idea? And maybe you get it optimized and follow all of these steps, but you're still not sure. Well, there's ways to get a second opinion and an outside perspective on, do you have your Cornerstone blog piece set up there in an ideal way? So if you want a second opinion there, why not book a free marketing review with me? We'll take 30 minutes. We'll get on, I was going to say get on Zoom, but we really go inside my recording studio for the podcast because I do these as podcast episodes, but they are very painless. We'll see each other on video, but we're not doing them by video. It's just audio. It's a way that you can get some marketing strategy free from me. And in this case, if you're worried about your Cornerstone blog pieces, let me take a look at them. We'll review them on one of these reviews. I'll look at how you've optimized it, how you've created it, how you've put it together, and your plans to refer to it and link to it from other pages on your website. That way, you'll know, are there any other ways that you can improve that Cornerstone piece even more to get it working faster for you? So if you're interested in that, you can definitely book a free marketing review with me on my website, and I'll put a link to that in the show notes too. And that's it for today. I really hope you take this episode today and episode 93, put them together and ensure that you've got everything that you can in place to get these Cornerstone blog pieces and content on your website that the search engines love and that people love finding as well, because that's how you're going to get referrals from perfect strangers because the Google sent them to you. And that's it for today, folks. This is Kathy Colaiacovo signing off, saying thanks. And I really do appreciate you taking the time to listen into it, my advice and all my ideas and some of my funny ideas as well. And remember, to thrive in practice means planning for that cornerstone content, that foundational content that can work for you 24/7 because you optimized it effectively and it's bringing you more traffic and leads and is working for you even when you're not working. I'll see you next time. You can find all of our show notes and resources mentioned at marketingyourprivatepractice.com. Be sure to connect with me on Instagram at pepperitmarketing and say hi. I'd love to hear any feedback you have, and make sure to rate and review the podcast and hit subscribe on your favorite player so you don't miss any future episodes.